All right. So let me get us prayed in and we'll go get started. And so what I know is that there is still only one, that we are it in form, inseparable, that we are made from it, surrounded by it, infused with it, that it is, in fact, knowing and experiencing life as its creation. And so this is a time of the infinite experiencing itself as this one moment, never to be repeated experience. So we simply lean into that, knowing that we are each different when we leave than when we arrived, and we allow ourselves to be changed and grown as we surrender to the process. With deep, deep gratitude, I simply let go and jump in. And so it is. You good? All right. So let's do a quick recap. Week 1, we begin by finishing, right? And so that's that whole process of identifying things that are still running us, that aren't happening anymore in the physical realm, just in the brain realm, right? Those things that we just keep turning over and turning over and turning over. You chilly, Pat? Yes. Let me go close this front door. Put some wood in this air hole over here. There we go. You're welcome. I had the thought this morning, I was watching Thor, and we have a new herd of cows in the meadow beside our house, and he's a herd dog. He's an Aussie Shepherd, and it doesn't matter whether the cows are visible or not. He knows they're there. And he sits at the deck and just watches with great intent, right? And isn't that kind of how we do to keep things alive that are no longer there, right? We know that event happened in childhood, but we sit and look for the evidence of it happening again. Maybe it's just me, right? So, we all have a little bit of herd dog in us, and we get to finish that stuff. And so I encourage you to use those worksheets to, go through and look at what are you feeling, what are you thinking, right? Work it through that process, release it, find the gift in it, because there's a gift in everything. No matter how horrible it seems, no matter how ugly the wrapping paper is, there's something there, right? And it doesn't mean you have to feel good about what happened, but there's a learning, right? And so find some place within you to forgive. If there's a perpetrator involved in your experience, forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. It's about freeing you to move on, to cut that chain so you quit dragging them around with you, okay? So we clear out the landscape. Then we can begin to identify our what, our deepest what. Not our when, not our where, not our how, but our what, the intangible. What do you want to experience? Okay? And if your what has a whole lot of how, when, and where, you're not at your what yet. Right? And we did an experience, in dyads. It's a challenging thing to get beyond all of the where, the when, the how, all of the doing, to just the what. And so practice, 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 and be kind with yourself in the process, right? You can even, if you choose, be amused with your own process of how, you can write down your what and then come back to it the next day and look at it again and go, well, there ain't a what in there at all. It's a whole lot of how, when, and where, right? Allow yourself to just be amused at your process instead of beating yourself up, because it is a process. It's a whole different programming system that we're playing with here, and it can challenge our human programming, right? So then we went to, how do we engage with life unfolding the where, the when, and the how? Because one of the slippery slopes that we can get on is, I've just identified my what, so now I'm out of the picture. Oh, no, you're not. Right? And so engaging with life unfolding the where, the when, the how, we have to learn to listen. We have to learn to take some risks, to follow those divine nudges. We get to learn how to discern between our brain static and our intuition, because they're different. Okay? The brain will have a lot of details. It'll have a lot of reasons. It'll have a lot of justifications. Your intuitive will just say, go here, with none of that. The intuitive to our human self is quite annoying, because our human self is run by our brain, which wants those explanations, right? It wants all that definition. It wants guarantees. It wants to know that if I go there, it's going to work out this way. Well, the intuitive's never going to give you that. The intuitive's just going to give you, go here. And so when you go there, it's kind of like a scavenger hunt, right? So in order to get the next clue, you got to go over here, and then you wait. And the intuitive says, great, now go over there. Okay. And we keep following the zigzag, and we keep paying attention, and we keep listening. And it can come from anywhere. It can come from a billboard. It can come from a car problem. And then you wind up at a mechanic, and the mechanic says something that leads you to where you ultimately need to go to manifest what it is you're trying to manifest. Who knows? Who knows? What does know is not a who, it's an activity, law. It knows exactly how to unfold it, because law, the activity of creation, has everything accessible to it. It has things accessible to it that you and I don't have. It has an impersonal clarity to it that you and I don't have. It's not invested in making people happy. Right? Any of us get stuck in that? I have to do this because if I don't, they will be unhappy. You know them, those people that live in the blue. Right? Law doesn't think that way. Law just goes, here. We get to choose. Right? And again, none of this is about guilt, shame, or blame. It is about understanding how it all works and that you get to choose. Because you may get a divine nudge. You may even have absolute clarity that, no thank you. I know I said I wanted to manifest this, but if I have to do this to manifest this, no thank you. That's okay. Right? I've seen people, they want to manifest their perfect home, and it's in a different state than they want to live in. Nope, not going. Okay. Law doesn't care. It doesn't care. It just gives you what you're asking for, and you get to pick, and you get to choose. And I invite you to do that free of any guilt, shame, or blame. To just stand in your power of choice and go, So if you are really infinite, whoever you are, there are an infinite number of ways to manifest this, and on the third corner of the 4th Street in Idaho, no thank you. Right? And then see what happens. Right? But just know that you're participating. You're not dictating the how, when, or where, but you are participating and you are at choice. It's the biggest place where choice really comes in is to choose whether or not you're going to follow those divine nudges. Then, building our faith muscle. So building your faith muscle really is contingent on those other steps, right? So what is faith? What does faith mean to you? A belief in something. Somebody else, what does faith mean?
Surrender your control, knowing that faith will, you have faith in something beyond yourself, to what you think.
Okay. Surrendering yourself to something you believe in beyond you. Great. Hebrews 11:1, I think it is, in the Bible. Faith is the substance of things not seen, but hoped for. That's always been an interesting verse to me, because it's the substance part, right? We talk about consciousness as substance, as the substance that everything is made out of. So if faith is the substance of everything seen but not hoped for, where I go with that is that place where Ernest Holmes talked about, instead of having faith in God, to tap into the faith of God, the substance of what we are. But in order to get there, we have to know that we are whatever it is in form, that we are made of that substance. And so our use of consciousness, our use of that one reality, is substance using substance, right? And then there's that part of faith, which I think we all relate to, is that it's a belief in something beyond our humanness, right? And how do we build that belief? Only way I know to do that is to experiment with it. You got to use it. Because I can tell you all day long in 1,000 different ways that it works. But if you don't really experience it, some part of you will be, yeah, I know it works for you. What about me? Right? And so you have to play with it. You have to practice it. How do you do that? You go back one step. You start following those divine nudges. How do you become aware of those divine nudges? You identify your what and let go of the when, where, and how. How do you get there? You excavate the dump so you can see the treasure. Right? So all of this stuff integrates together. All of it. Now, how do you put all that together to actually live success? How do you make a living out of it? How do you make it your way of life? How do you make it your everything? Any ideas?
Can I go back a little bit?
Yeah.
The challenge for me is that, like you said, you got to know your what. Let's just say you get a pretty good handle on your what.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got this thing of the fact that it's impersonal. Everything is run by law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're not sure that where the path we follow to get to that what, we're not sure about what the things are in between. As you said, at some point, that sometimes it'll say, well, this is what's going to have to happen if you're going there. And then you say, well, no, I don't think I want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that part in the middle there that's like, okay, how do you...
So the path from the what to the manifestation.
Yeah, well, the stuff that has to go on in between.
Excellent.
Well, I'm not sure I want those things. But how are we going to know those things? When we get way down the road, maybe it's too late, you can't go back. Yeah, if you're going to die. What?
I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing about what you're talking about. So, for those on the recording, what we're looking at is the impersonal nature of law, right? Law is impersonal. Personally, I find the personification of spirit in the what, not in the how, when, where. Because you're right, law unfolding is incredibly impersonal. And when we say impersonal, what we're talking about is it works the same for no matter who uses it. It's not, this is where principle operates over personality, is what this really says, right? Because it doesn't address your personality. It just is acting on the information in your what. I have found that when I feel that I-thou relationship, that's what's personal. It's that vibration, it's that vibrational alignment. Like when you're tuning guitar strings, you're listening for one vibration. You got two strings, you're listening for resonance of one vibration. When I experience that in my what, where there's no shadow, we talked about this morning, right? Shadow is blocked light. If I bring myself into perfect alignment with the essence of my being, this is that place where I'm also looking at what does life want to express? What does life want to express as me versus what do I want to express as life? That helps me get to it, right? Because if my what is coming from my brain, doesn't mean I won't manifest it, because you can, right? You can manifest a parking place, right? I mean, early on in metaphysics, we were often referred to as the people of parking spaces, palaces, and princes, because we were manifesting parking spaces and homes and relationships, right? And there's more. And that's what this is about. This is not in contradiction to manifesting form. This is more. This is that place where we talk about where we no longer think about manifesting things because we're living it. This is the embodiment that, what Michael Beckwith talks about, pain pushes until vision pulls, right? This is living from vision. How does spirit want to express as my life? What does spirit want to express as my life? And letting ourselves really begin to play with embodying that. And then dealing with all of the stuff that comes up. Like, well, I won't know how to interact with the human race if I do that. Right? Those are some of the thoughts that come up. Who will I be without my limitations? Who will I be? None of this is taking away your humanity. None of it. It's just bringing your humanity into alignment with your spiritual essence. That's all it is. With vision, we ask it. We ask. This comes through prayer, visioning, meditation, And it can come unexpectedly, right? It's those moments where you're just diddy-bopping along through life and you have this, I'm going to change career because I am pulled to do this. Versus, my career sucks, it's not making me enough money, I need to do something that makes me more money. That's pain pushing, right? Versus, nothing's necessarily wrong. And all of a sudden, you have this pull for different. And sometimes, those ideas strike us as profoundly ridiculous. Right? Profoundly ridiculous. But I'll tell you, I've done a lot of searching around on the gospel according to Google. And because one of the things that got in my way is I'm too old to change now. Anybody else play that game? Right? This is all I know, so I'm just going to follow it out. But then I find people that started a new career in their 80s. Now what's my excuse? Kind of blows it out of the water. I'm too old to write a book. And here's an author who's 98 writing her first book. Well, shut up, Rafe. That's just an excuse. It's me arguing for my limitations because deep in there is a socialized belief that says you have to set your path by this age and then you have to stay on it because that's what my generation was taught. Versus today, the mindset is very different, right? Where we got a job and stayed in it no matter what. No matter how bad we were treated, no matter how poorly we were paid, it was about staying in the job. Today, that doesn't happen. Even people that are treated well in high-paying professional positions tend to not stay very long anymore because the paradigm has shifted. So perhaps every paradigm that's operating in there, we can shift. Right? So that's what all this is about. It's about we don't have to settle anymore. But how do we know what's us, what's spirit, what's intuition, what's brain static? Right? So one tool that I use is my gut. When I think about it, is there any resistance from my gut? Or is the resistance my head? Right? Is it a undefined no? Or is it, let me give you the 101 reasons why this won't work? Because if it has a whole lot of reasons, that's my brain. And that's my brain using the conditioning that it's been given to tell me why it won't work and why I shouldn't do it. That's not my intuitive. That's my brain. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. Right? This isn't about making one right and one wrong. It's about understanding which is which so you can choose which one you want to listen to. Now, in order to choose the intuitive, what do I trust? See, sometimes it's easier to trust my brain because it has a whole lot of evidence, right? It has a whole lot of studies. It has a whole list of people and knows what their opinions are to support what I should do. Honestly, I have never experienced my intuitive to use the word should. Never. It just says, come here. It doesn't even say go there. It says, come here. It pulls not pushes. Does that make it a little more clear? Okay. Well, okay. You know, pay attention to where the energy is in your body. Is the energy here and here, or is it here? If your energy is in your heart space, if it's in your gut, it's probably your intuition. If it's in your head, probably not.
Don't you think though sometimes the head can get involved with the stomach?
It can. It can. And that's where you got to pay attention to. And thank you for that, because you're absolutely correct. So then, what is the energy? Does it feel fear-based, or does it feel like an energy that you want more of?
The way I learned to do that is to scan my body and find where I feel the energy, and then feel if it feels good or bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's going to be different for everybody, however you relate to it, however you identify it, right? Positive, negative, good, bad, high vibration, low vibration. There's a million labels we can put on it. And ultimately, what words work for you? Because seriously, we can put 100 people in the room, give them a sheet of paper that has words on it, and ask them to write what those words mean to them, and we'll get a whole lot of different definitions, and most of them won't even be in the dictionary. So however you relate to the words is because what matters is what you're believing, not what the word actually means, but what does it mean to you? Does that make sense? Right? So yeah, where's the energy? Where's the emotion? Where's your awareness? And what is it telling you? Right? And you'll find your own litmus test. You know, mine is if it contains the word should, I ain't better gotta do nothing. I just go right Southern on it, and it's no. No. If it feels like I'm being pushed, no. No. If it's pulling me somewhere, I'm going to go. But it took a while for me to discern the energy of push from the energy of pull. And that's the invitation to begin to live it, is to set up a spiritual practice to where you practice this stuff. Because it's great to spend all 5 weeks here getting the information. But if all you do is take that information and put it in a notebook and put it on the shelf and never look at it again, it won't serve you. It's like buying a brand new vehicle, parking it in your driveway, burying the car keys, and complaining because you can't go anywhere. All you got to do is put the key in the ignition and drive it, right? So you have a new vehicle. Get in it and drive it. Test it out. Here's the good news. You can't crash and burn. You can't. Right? You may manifest something that isn't exactly what you want. Okay, guess what you do? Change it. Yeah, drive somewhere else. Right? You are the only thinker in your mind. And you get to change it anytime you want. There's a saying about, and it might even be in Buddhism, to really walk the path is to allow the path to be built as you're putting your foot down. Right? I don't know about you, but I want to know where my foot's going.
I call that building the plane mid-flight. It's not the most comfortable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're like already in the air, and you're trying to build an airplane before you land. It's that same sensation. And then you realize, well, okay, you've built your airplane. Where's the runway? Oops, forgot to build a runway. That's the beauty of law. It knows you need a runway. It knows you need a plane. It knows whatever it is that is necessary for the unfolding of our journey is already known and already activated. We get lost when we don't see it in form. And that's where the whole faith thing comes back in. Are we willing to believe without, and it's called an unqualified belief. Qualification being, I can see it, I can touch it, right? Are you willing to believe that law is unfolding everything for your good, for your highest and greatest expression of life as you, even when you don't see it? That's the part where we're moving into living the success of it, right? So what gets in the way of you believing that? Of really embodying it, what gets in the way?
Your ego or what you believe from past,
Mm-hmm.
because you've never seen, about the faith part. So
Right. So conditioned belief.
and thinking, well, that happened before, so it's gonna happen again.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. When things show up looking a whole lot like the path we already took to the train wreck, right? It's real easy to go to that, oh no, I've been here before. I know where this goes. Here's the problem with that thinking, right? All thought is creative, right? And so I may be on the first part of the same path, and there's a point where the paths go this way, and this is the one I've already experienced. And so before I even get to the fork in the road to know there's a different option, I'm back here going, oh no, I know where that goes. And then lo and behold, the impersonal law in consciousness says, okay, I'll take you there. Zoop. And we never even get to see that there was another road. There was another path, because we wouldn't even imagine that it could be different. And that's the beauty of this. You don't have to make it different. You just have to be willing to imagine that it could be different. You don't even have to believe that it is going to be different. That's building your faith muscle. You got to start with at least entertaining the option that it could be. That it could be. That maybe, just maybe the infinite realm knows more than my finite little experience. Maybe. Start there. Right? Because we have an arrogance in our human experience. It says, not only do I know where I'm going, I know where you're going. That's what, and all of that is coming up over the next 9 days, right? I know what's going to happen if you vote the way you're voting. You don't. But what you are creating is what you believe is going to happen without taking responsibility for it. So that same thought process here, when things start looking familiar, it's a point of choice, right? Pay attention. Now, has my energy shifted from my heart to my head? Has my vibration shifted from one of peace to one of chaos? Did my gut go from being, to being, what changed? What changed? Now, you're back to the very first week. We begin by finishing, right? Stay in the process. And these tools all work, and they don't have to go in order. When you find yourself experiencing something from the past, just take the shortcut. Go back to the beginning. Clear it away. Follow that worksheet. I'm feeling this because I'm telling myself this. If it involves somebody else, do your forgiveness work. Forgiveness work doesn't mean you're excusing bad behavior. It just means you're setting yourself free from it. Right? You're not changing them. You're changing your attachment to them. It's all about what you're doing for you. And then you keep walking it through. Right? Relook at your what. Does your what show up differently now that you've cleared out this section of stuff? Maybe not, but it might. So just get it. Play with it. Right? Read it. Does it still resonate? And then you're back into looking for the signs. And again, pay attention to how often you want the bridge. You're standing there at the edge of the Grand Canyon, and everything inside of you, all of our teachings say, there's a bridge you don't see, and it will become visible as you step. Exactly. And that's exactly what the brain does. Yeah, right. Because what we see is the open trench. We see the vulnerability. We sense the fear, or what we call fear, and really fear and excitement kind of feel the same way in our bodies. It's only our brain that differentiates it, right? So what if you're just experiencing excitement? What if you're experiencing, let's see. Right? I mean, we are, and this is something I was really, when I finally dawned on me, I'm like, well, how did we miss that for this many years? We are sensational beings, right? Meaning we know we're most alive based on our sensations. This time of year, people are watching really scary horror shows. Why? Because it scares the bejabbers out of them. What happens when you feel afraid? You feel a whole lot of sensation. You feel really alive. Right? There's a whole amusement park industry based in making us feel alive. You hop on a roller coaster, and we feel alive, and it's exciting. And yet, when it comes to taking risks, oh no. That's a bad sensation. But it's the same sensation. What if there's really no cavern? What if we made it up? What if it's always been safe to take that next step, whether I see the path or not? What if? And so play with that. When you're playing with building your faith muscle, just sit with, a lot of building faith is just sitting with ideas. Okay, well, what if? And play it out. See how it feels. You haven't changed anything in your life yet. You're just playing with an idea. Right? And as you begin to feel more comfortable with the idea, then put it in motion. You get to pick how you participate. Just know that to not participate, there's no such option. You're either participating by saying yes or participating by saying no. But the option for non-participation in the creative realm, nope. I will tell you from my own recent experience, remind us the infinite, the universe, life, whatever you want to call it, is affirmative, meaning it only creates forward, right? So if you think about that, that means it has no recognition of never or not. It just hears the object of attention and creates it. And so when we scream with great passion, I am never going to do fill in the blank again. Buckle up, because here it comes. Because the only thing Law heard was, I am going to do blah, blah, blah again. And it received it with all of the energy and passion that I screamed it into the universe. And then it all started very quickly showing up, and I'm like, oh, I forgot. In my human angst, in my human anger, in a moment, I set a storm off in consciousness that I'm like, okay, I know this is mine. I'm not beating myself up for it, but I am having a new awareness that creation is always affirmative. And so I can scream negatives into it all I want. I can scream stop, I can scream never, I can scream not, all I want. That defies natural law. Because if creation ever stopped for just a nanosecond, for a moment, all of it stops. It's continuous. It never takes a break. Right? Imagine you're going through life and all of a sudden everything stops. And then you start again. That's what would happen if creation had stops. It doesn't. It's always creating. So just know you can scream you're never going to do something or you're not going to do something. All law hears is is the object of your thought. That's why when we tell ourselves things like, I'm going to manifest $1 million, and in the back of your mind there's laughter. What you're going to manifest is anything but $1 million. You're going to manifest what that laughter believes. Right? It's that same place of, yeah, right. And so we get to wrestle with those places. Doesn't make anything bad or wrong. It just means we are a product of human conditioning. That's what Ernest Holmes was talking about when he said turn away from condition. He didn't say stop being a human being. Right? He's just saying recognize, oh, that's conditioned thinking. What else is available? What else is available? Right? And then we remember how it all works. And what comes up in that process. And then we get to choose. Am I willing to do that or not? What stops you from saying yes? Fear of?
Based on faith, like you always think that you're doing your best, and then you think when you get to a place and you're like, okay, so it's scary to take the more steps, because it hasn't, and even with your intuition, you're letting it go, trying a new way, it's that scary, like, just not who you are. It's giving up who you are to believe in the impersonal part that is what is, and just putting all that aside, and but scary part is we aren't who we think we are.
Beautiful. There's a lot in that. Thank you. So let's unravel this a minute. The scary part, and this is what I heard in the very beginning, is that things are going to turn out the way they have in the past. That I've been trying, and it hasn't been working, so why do I think it's going to work now? Right? And that's absolutely real in this human experience. And that's the stuff that we've been talking about in that first week. We begin by finishing, because if we don't finish that stuff that we're still holding on to, yes, absolutely, it will replicate itself, because that's where our belief is. And the most powerful belief operating in any of us are those unquestioned beliefs, the ones that we believe with such certainty we don't even think about them. Right? When you go out to get in your vehicle and drive somewhere, most of us don't think about the whole process. We don't think, I'm walking out my back door, I'm reaching behind me to close the door, I've closed the door, now it's locked, I'm stepping down my steps. We don't do that. We just go to our vehicle, put the key in, turn it forward with every expectation that it's going to start, put it in gear without even thinking about it. It's automated, right? That's what's happening with those thoughts. They keep showing up that I'm trying to create something new and the same old stuff keeps showing up. That is giving us information that there is some deeply held automated belief operating. And you can cover over it. You can put layers and layers and layers of wrapping paper on it, but that won't change what's in the box. It just changes how you see it, right? So unwrap it. Take a look at it. And that's why we have that process. Thank it for what it has given you all these years, because it has served you well for something. None of us continue to do something for years that isn't meeting some need. And maybe it's finished now. You don't need that anymore. Right? Thank that belief for sustaining you, however it sustained you, for however long it sustained you. Because then you can let it go in love. And you've released it. Now you're open. You get a new path. You get new stuff. You get new nudges. Don't be fooled into thinking that that old belief isn't going to jump up and go, hey, what about me? Because it is. Right? But you have an experience where you can go back to and say, I see you. I see you. And yes, you've been with me for umpteen years, and I am grateful for everything you did during those years. And you're no longer in the driver's seat. I am, and I'm choosing this. It doesn't mean that I'm throwing you away. It means I am choosing instead of you choosing. And to have those loving and kind conversations with yourself, right? It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Do you guys know anything about transactional analysis? Have you ever heard of that? Let me show you. This is a really cool thing in psychology. It is such a cool thing. Transactional analysis. Every one of us, and it kind of fits with the triune nature of life, if you think about it. We have a parent, we have an adult, and we have a child part of ourselves. And if you think about it like this is mind, this is law, this is form, okay? The adult, completely impersonal, just all about the facts, right? It's just the processing center, just like law, right? Here's where it gets tricky. The parent and the child have two parts. The nurturing parent and the critical parent. The nurturing child and the critical child. Right? So if you think about it in terms of this side is our humanity. Other way around. Well, no. Okay, so this side tends to be our human experience. Our conditioned thinking, if you will. And this is our God self. All right. Then we begin to understand the conversations that happen. Those internal dialogues, right? Because the God self is saying, support your child to do whatever they want to do. Because your child is my child. We're all one, right? But the critical parent is over here going, they're going to train wreck their life. Right? So I have to intervene. And so what happens is the critical parent voice starts scolding the nurturing child, that God self part of us that wants to explore, that wants to express, right? Well, what happens in that process is the critical child is learning all of those lessons and all of that dialogue. And so even when the nurturing parent tries to support, the critical child will throw temper tantrums or do something to divert the nurturing parent's attention, and this cycle continues. All the while, the solution is right here. Is right here. Are we willing to let go and follow the impartial guidance? This is like, in the human realm, everybody remember Dragnet? Joe Friday? Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. That's what this is. And it stops that catastrophizing conversation that happens from the critical child and the critical parent. It stops that. It also stops what can be spiritual bypass and unicorn thinking from the nurturing child and the nurturing parent that refuses to acknowledge, I know you think it's a cool idea to walk down the middle of the street, but really there is a bus coming. Get on the sidewalk. To use all parts of ourselves to balance it out. Because we're all aware of this internal dialogue. We just don't know what it means. We hear it. We interact with it. And on the really simplistic, this is the stuff that totally ruins relationships. It's that place where the nurturing child says, what time is it? And the critical parent says, time for you to buy a watch. That's not helpful. It's snarky. It doesn't feel good. But that's our conditioning, right? So pay attention to your internal dialogue when you become aware of one of those divine nudges. And that little kid part of you excitedly says, well, that would be cool. And the immediate thing is a squash. That's what's going on here. Right? And it's just conditioned thinking. That's all it is. Now, you cannot get rid of conditioned thinking by hating it. You can't. All you're doing is throwing gasoline on the fire. You just recognize it. Come here. Let me put you in the passenger seat. Buckle you in so you're safe. and I'm getting behind the wheel. Right? But we think we have to assault ourselves to get rid of. You cannot. Here's the good news and the bad news, folks. And I can't say this enough. Every thought that has ever been thunk is eternal. Pat said, oh no. It's okay. You're in good company. First time I realized that. Well, think about it, right? If there's one substance that is an infinite, eternal being, that is mind itself, that is consciousness itself, and we are it in form, and we are thinking from it as it, that's all there is, where can there be a thought that's not eternal? Because then eternality stops. It's one of those things that either is or it isn't. Right? So every thought that has ever been thunk is eternal. So the good news is we can stop stressing over those moments where, again, the blue, where thoughts just come out of the blue. It's just an eternal thought in the mind of the infinite. You don't have to grab a hold of it, pin it to the ground, and bludgeon it to death if you don't like it. You can just go, bye. Right? You remember the Goodyear blimp? I love it because, like, you guys are my people because we're in the same generational era. Because I could say this to some people and they'd be like, the what? Right? Had that nice little thing scrolling across it with all the advertisements, right? I invite you, when a thought comes out of infinite consciousness that doesn't interest you, just watch it go by. Just watch. You don't have to shoot down the blimp. Just watch it go by. Eventually, a thought will come by that you go, oh, that one's mine. Right? Yeah. We are a new thought tradition. I invite you to have one. I mean, we're new thought and we're so resistant to having one. It's like almost comical.
It's like the new thought, but then it goes across the old one, you keep coming, it's tiring, it's like, you're tired, oh, like, okay.
Okay, so stay with that analogy. What makes it tiring? Or trying to get the old one to stop showing up. See?
But like you said, what you're trying to do is making it come back.
Right. See, we're frustrated that the old thought keeps coming up, and yet the more we try to make it not come up, the more we make it come up. Stop it! Yeah. So it's so simple. Shift your focus to the new thought. Keep repeating. This is why affirmations work. It is. It absolutely is. It is just mental calisthenics. How do you build faith? You practice it. How do you build muscles? You work out. Get a daily spiritual practice and use it. Because too many of us are not living a daily spiritual practice, and then something comes up, right? The ugly hits the fan, and then we decide to, oh, now I need to do spiritual practice, and we're unprepared. We're starting from scratch because many of us have forgotten what a spiritual practice, what am I supposed to do again? Wait. Whereas if you live a spiritual practice, when things come up, they don't rock your world. You can just go, all right, I'm choosing this. And you go to spiritual practice. If you meditate on a regular basis, meditate sitting up. Why? Because you're training your body to be able to access calmness. If you are driving if you meditate laying down, You're training your body to access calmness when you're laying down. If you're driving and you need to access calmness, it's going to be a little more challenging because you can't lay down while you're driving. And that's how your body will remember to access it. Right? You're dealing with intelligence and cells. You're creating habits. And so I invite you, encourage you, practice doing walking meditations. Practice doing standing meditations. Practice doing sitting meditations. So that when things happen in this physical realm, because they will, you're prepared. You can actually stand and have a conversation, have a challenging conversation, and activate that center of peace in you when you have practiced it to where it's just habit. Create new habits, right? Create a habit. One of the things I do, I'm not recommending it, I'm offering it as an option, is I watch the news. And every time something comes up on the news that challenges me, I chant inside my head, "You are the face of God. You are the face of God."
That's like testing the courage and endorsement.
Well, maybe. For me, it's training. It's in training because they are the face of God, no matter who it is. In your eyes, it's me I see. We're not separate. I do that. I do an exercise where I am one with you. I am one with you. I am one with you. Doesn't mean I agree with their behavior. It doesn't mean I agree with their philosophy. It means I'm moving beyond that to claim the truth of our being, the truth of our oneness, so that I stop engaging in hatred that just makes more of what I don't want. You'll find your own path to it. The other practice, and I've talked about this before, talked about it in a talk I did at Asilomar in 2019. It's what I call my I am practice. And I especially use this when there is a shooting or something really horrendous. And I start with the thing I hate the most. And I just speak truth to it. I am the bullet. I am the gun. I am the shooter. I am the shot. Not I am Rafe, but I am, capital I, capital A. Because if it is everything, it's everything. And sometimes I do that and the tears flow. And sometimes, quite honestly, I do it while I'm barfing because it hits me so hard. But I do it because for me, and I'm just sharing you with what some of my practices are. If I allow myself to not do it, I very quickly go to hatred. And I refuse. I refuse. It's not that the human part of me doesn't want to indulge. It does. It does. Yeah. I don't want to be a part of creating more of what I don't want. And so I'm willing to go through that human birth canal spiritually over and over again.
By acknowledgement, though, aren't you creating more of that?
No. This is a water bottle. It is the infinite in form as a water bottle. Notice, there would be no pushback about recognizing this as a water bottle. But when we think it's a bad thing, we go there. And I totally get it. So thank you for bringing that up. Because I'm just acknowledging that the bullet is God in form. It is creation in form, just like a tree is creation in form. If everything is made out of it, then everything is made out of it. We don't get to pick and choose. And if we are, this is God and this is not, you get to do that. Let me be really clear. You get to believe whatever you believe. And that is living in duality. That is saying there's two powers rather than one. And this is the part that I think is so hard for us, is understanding an infinite being that allows us to use creation for really profoundly screwed up things in this human realm, without judgment, without condemnation, without withdrawing itself. And that's part of our human condition thinking. Right and wrong, good and bad, up, down. We made all that up. Probably to justify it so we could do it. I don't know. I'm sure some part of me knows that because I'm an infinite being made out of it. So some part of me was there when it was all being decided, but I don't remember it. Right? I just know that none of us is our behavior. I'm not sanctioning the behavior. I'm recognizing the truth of the behavior. Very different. And it's not for everybody, I get that. There was a time that was one of those, those divine nudges I talk about? When that one came up, I was like, yeah, God, do you have a supervisor I can speak with? Because no part of me could wrap myself around that because I was too deep in hate and judgment and pain. What I can tell you is that once again I learned that on the other side of every ouch is an amazing hallelujah if I will just be willing to follow it. And we all get to choose.
It may be difficult to do what you said you do right now. And you think of the other side of it and how hatred is
Yes,
what you really want.
exactly.
You really want to keep on creating.
Exactly. Thank you for that. For those of you watching the recording, what was said was, it may be difficult to do what I'm suggesting, and the other side of it can be equally difficult to continue to hate and to feel all of that hatred. And is that really what we want? Yeah. And we get to choose. We get to choose. I'm going to end it with, let me pull up one of my emails because I have it written down on my email. The mentor, my greatest mentor that I've never met. My man, Viktor Frankl. Oh, he's right here. We just can't see him. Well, I think I'm going to have it. Maybe I'm not. Where is it? Okay, I know where I can find it. Facebook. I can find everything on Facebook. The gospel according to Facebook. Y'all think I'm kidding? Okay, here we go. Because it is on my Facebook page. Do what? Well, I said it was there. Where is it? I am not finding it. This is frustrating. All right, let me try one more place because I really want to leave you with this thought because it's just amazing. All right, let's see if it's here. There we go. See, if you turn over enough rocks, Viktor Frankl, if you don't know about Viktor Frankl, he survived living in a Nazi concentration camp. They took everything from him except the one thing that he recognized they couldn't have, and that's his power of choice. And not only did he survive, but he thrived and came out of that experience offering us a whole teaching and a whole paradigm for psychology to empower choice. He thrived. This is one of the things that he said. Between stimulus and response lies a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose a response. In our response lies our growth and our happiness. Viktor Frankl. We are a New Thought theology. I dare you to have one.